Woods literally surround the home. It's very tough terrain, full of venomous snakes, briar patches, and an occasional bear. This comes as more attention goes to the possibility that Summer was the victim of foul play. Summer was said to be planting flowers outside the home next to this camper when she went inside to play and then vanished.
Next Wednesday marks 6 months since family members reported the 5-year-old girl missing from her Beach Creek community home in Hawkins County, Tennessee.
Something you see on social media that you know is somebody's opinion or just speculation, that's not a credible tip.
Click and you'll find theories, outlandish accusations, and even live debate.
People around this case seem to be dying.
But the most interesting and different thing with this case that I don't think I've ever seen before is the way the family has been interacting with these social media sleuths and YouTubers.
Hold on. So what they do, they just knocked on the door and came in and cuffed him and took him? Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Candace.
We heard just this kind of shrill, almost animalistic scream.
What did you do with your daughter? He buried his baby somewhere and we want to know where she's at.
Then it really sunk in on this second time when he was going through the money thing again, when it was time to pay. And it really was starting to hit home. This guy's not legit.
This is Summer Wells. Almost exactly 2 years ago, on June 15th, 2021, this little 5-year-old girl went missing from her home in Rogersville, Tennessee. Summer's birthday was on February 4th, so that would make her 7 years old today, and she is still missing. Not only is she still missing, but not one person has been arrested or named a suspect in her disappearance. That may come as a shock to anyone who just started following true crime and has come across videos in the Summer Wells case, because for the last 2 years, some YouTubers, with the help of Summer's parents, have created a cottage industry around rumors, speculation, theories, and conspiracies that very convincingly place the blame on family, friends, neighbors, church ladies, drug rings, and even something called the Cornbread Mafia. Despite all of its best and not so best intentions, through thousands and thousands of hours of emotional ups and downs, social media has not found Summer, and not one social media tip has led to finding anyone who might be connected to her disappearance. In fact, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the lead agency in Summer's case, has said on many occasions that social media speculation has actively harmed the ability to work the case.
Something you see on social media that you know is somebody's opinion or just speculation, that's not a credible tip. In fact, that just bogs law enforcement down by having us, we have to go through and check that information and then mark it off.
Caleb Perrin reports the case is getting widespread attention on the internet, and in some ways it's making things worse.
Unfortunately, what I just described reflects a well-worn, well-tracked, and well-documented pattern in high-profile YouTube true crime cases. But every pattern has unique colors and shapes to it. So let's explore that well-worn pattern and dig into the unique shapes and colors that warped a young, curious, vibrant little girl with her whole life ahead of her from a lost girl to a CashTag. Here's what we know about Summer Wells. At the time she went missing, she weighed 40 pounds and was 3 feet tall. Any parents who are out there who've raised children can imagine that 2 years would have put at least some height and maturity on her appearance. Another thing she has is very light hair and bright blue eyes. The hair was very short when she went missing. It's probably grown out quite a bit by now. Now, she is the last born of 4 children in the Wells family, and she's the only girl. Her parents are Dawn and Candace Wells, and together they all lived in a secluded rural community in Tennessee where entire haulers have been in the same family for generations, and there are intense feuds over land and money, and other things too. According to Summer's parents, she loves Paw Patrol and Little Pony, and she prefers going barefoot everywhere she goes. She swims like a fish and has never met a piece of candy she wouldn't eat, and she gives all of her 3 older brothers a run for their money. Now, this is the last known footage of Summer Wells, and it was taken at a lake where she swam the day that she went missing. According to Candace Bly, Summer's mother, they left the 3 boys at home earlier that day to take Candace's mother to the doctor. Now, Candace's mother is also called Candace, but people call her Candy, so to differentiate her from Summer's mother, I will henceforth call Summer's grandmother Candy. Now, while they were waiting for a prescription to be filled, Candace, Candy, and a 15-year-old friend of the family went with Summer to Warrior State Park, and that's where this footage was taken. After leaving the park, Candace Bly says that she drove the 15-year-old boy back to his house and then drove to her home on Ben Hill Road in the Beach Creek community. This is the last known image of Summer Wells before she went missing. She was asleep in the back of her grandmother's truck as her mother drove them home. And this picture alone, with all of its various elements, including the fact that she was resting on a cold gallon of milk, was the topic of months and months and hours of morbid YouTube speculation about whether Summer Wells was dead or alive in the image. Candace says that when they got home after this picture was taken, she came out into their yard and saw Summer playing, and then went to Candy's camper on the property to help her with her knee brace. She says that by the time she finished helping her mother with the knee brace, she walked back out into the yard and didn't see Summer, so she went inside where her 3 boys were playing, and they were playing games on the TV, and she says she asked the boys where Summer went, and they told her she had gone downstairs to play in her bedroom. So Candace says she went downstairs to find Summer, and when she got down there, she couldn't see Summer, and the back door to the outside was wide open. Candace says that she then went around screaming for Summer but didn't see her anywhere, so called 911. And I just want to let you know that everything I just told you about what Candace has said has changed in various forms and shapes and sizes since that first story came out, and people have spent hours and hours trying to figure out what's the right timeline. Why is Candace changing her story? And that's become point of major speculation. Almost as soon as Summer was reported missing, her Amber Alert was in heavy circulation in local, national, and online news, including social media. And the breaking news phase is an exciting time for CashTaggers because they know that each new high-profile true crime case enters in a whole new swath of new true crime viewers who will become so interested in a specific victim or case that they'll follow any update they can get, and most of that they can get on social media. Getting access to a whole new wave of gullible viewers who are immune to scams and tricks is a unique phenomenon in true crime because I can't think of any other genre that attracts hordes of new viewers with each new high-profile case. Now, if you've been following true crime on YouTube for a while, you've probably seen this unique phenomenon. The Chris Watts case attracted many people to YouTube who had previously only watched animal videos and makeup tutorials. Hi, I'm one of them. The Kylie Rodney case did the same thing. So did the Idaho 4 case, and so did Summer Wells. A good portion of those new viewers will become active participants in true crime live streams which promise breaking bombshell news and information, whether that information is accurate or not. New viewers are much less likely to question the manipulative tactics that CashTaggers will use to solicit views and donations. So the breaking news phase is the CashTaggers' chance to endear, in other words, love bomb that new audience with their own brand of manipulation while waving the high-flying wave of the newest case. Content in the breaking news phase of the Summer Wells case pretty much followed whatever came out via national news or law enforcement, and that's pretty much how it goes with other cases as well. We were shown footage of searches, overhead views of her home and neighborhood, and regular law enforcement updates. The breaking news phase is also when we're usually introduced to the family members who are affected by it. And that makes sense because when someone goes missing, the family feels compelled to help get the message out and will give interviews to local news. And little does that family know that when they appear on camera to do the right thing for their loved ones, they're also making themselves known to the YouTube cash taggers who know that getting an interview with that family member will bring more what? Cash. Now, every time a new family member or friend or witness appears on camera, the starting gun blasts off for a virtual race to be the first YouTuber to platform that person. The YouTuber or YouTubers who quote unquote win those first interviews are instrumental in phase 2 coming on of high profile true crime on YouTube, and that's called the family grab phase. Now, it's important to recognize that each phase I talk about here builds on top of the next phase. The family grab phase builds on the breaking news phase by keeping those new viewers in, by keeping new information flowing into the case with the family. In many instances, cash taggers will manipulate these family members into believing they need to be exclusively tied only to their channel so other YouTubers are cut off from their hashtag. They'll use manipulative tactics like, my channel is the only channel that will serve you well, that'll be dedicated to you, that'll take up. And depending on the motive of the family member that they're talking to, sometimes channels will conscript themselves over and become complicit a bit in whatever family involvement might have been in the case. And that's a scary proposition. Now, these family members are approached at the most desperate and vulnerable times in their lives. If a CashTag channel contacts them and says they want to do whatever they can to help their family find their loved one, the family will find that hard to resist unless they've already been exposed to how other true crime families have been exploited before them. Unbeknownst to any true crime family, the level of their involvement with YouTubers has a drastic impact on how the case will continue to play out on YouTube. And depending on how involved they get with specific YouTubers, their lives will not only be changed by the crime itself, it will also be harmed and changed in many ways by social media.
We turned to social media, which was hoping that that could help us find our daughter, and everybody come up, theorizing and all kind of stuff. It just got really bad.
The involvement of family members can make or break the way a true crime case is covered and sometimes damage the criminal investigation itself. In my opinion, Summer's case has sustained irreparable harm because of the way her family and friends have involved themselves with YouTube. Over time, Dawn and Kenneth Wells not only developed close dysfunctional relationships with several YouTubers, which started out as them being chummy and happy with each other. Then when they turned on each other, these YouTubers said that they were turning in information to TBI. We don't know if it's legit information or not, but this is how I believe YouTube directly impacted the case investigation, because this was happening a lot with the Summer Wells case. Before long, Dawn and Candace eventually started their own YouTube channels, and then, before much longer, neighbors and friends of Summer Wells put themselves up for the YouTube family grab, and since then, some have created their own YouTube channels where they all do their own version of the CashTag.
Love leads everywhere, touches everyone, and has many subjects on so many different topics like kindness, caring, peace, happiness, support, etc. I am learning through this all the hate. Absolutely. Anything else you'd like to say?
God bless you all.
Somebody has hurt her, probably sexually, maybe beat the fuck out of her, probably killed her.
And all these other YouTube freaks that got Donnie so wrapped up in their thumbs that, like, he can't even really see the real shit that's going on.
You know, I have a theory that you're a dumb bitch.
Don, you know you're a liar. I know you're a liar. I've known you've been a liar the entire time we've lived beside one another for years. I didn't care about any of it. I was cool. No, you're not going to do me like you do everybody else. I'm telling you, you know, and I know you just lied. The traffic wasn't at our house.
Don's probably going to go to prison for a very long time. Just on the SA allegations alone.
In my opinion, the underwhelming quality and overwhelming quantity of participation by Summer's family, friends, and neighbors turned phase 3, the cash tagging phase, of this high-profile true crime case into 5 times the dumpster fire than it would have without them. The cash tagging phase of a high-profile true crime case becomes recognizable when the victim of the case is overshadowed by all the YouTube drama surrounding the feuding YouTubers who cover that case. This phase will inevitably happen in any high-profile true crime case. There will always be a cash tag phase because there will always be true crime cash taggers on YouTube. But the chaos that was added to it by Summer's friends and family added an elephant-sized layer to the inevitable chaos, making it last longer and seem more explosive. It's impossible for me to go into detail about every single instance of chaos that ensued on YouTube around Summer Wells over the past 2 years. So I'm going to highlight a few of the most dramatic and exploitative situations that turned Summer Wells into a cash tag. The Interview Room is one of the first YouTube channels that Summer's family and friends allowed to interview them. Not long after this exclusive series of on-location interviews took place, and it's a little bit rare for these on-location interviews to take place, so it was a good move by the Interview Room, but what they did after that, we can leave up to question. And after this appearance on the Interview Room and how they appeared and how they were painted as a result of their involvement with the Interview Room, Wells have engaged in an online troll battle with Chris McDonough ever since. He's the host of the Interview Room. In fact, the Wells were so colored by their experience with the Interview Room that we can safely assume that every subsequent appearance on YouTube or on camera has been an attempt to change people's views and perceptions of them after their appearance on the Interview Room and after the Interview Room's subsequent coverage. The Interview Room was the first big channel to really turn Summer into a cash tag. The channel experienced huge growth during this time because it started to get thousands rather than hundreds of simultaneous viewers in its live chat. And after airing their exclusive set of interviews with Summer's friends and family, where it seemed like they had a very nice rapport, Chris McDonough and the Wells, the Interview Room then dragged us all down a major rabbit hole to pin Don Wells on child sex assault charges that were completely unrelated to Summer's disappearance. Now, was this compelling content? Sure. Was it necessary? Did it help find Summer Wells? No, I don't think so. This rabbit hole involved 2 of Don's stepsisters and some salacious allegations that would put Don and Candace Wells in such a state of panic that they resorted to pranking YouTube. That's right, you heard me right. The grieving, desperate parents of a missing child put together an elaborate prank to make the Interview Room and Don's stepsister look like idiots, and in the meantime, all of us other viewers who bought Candace's phony story. Now, what you're about to hear are clips from a phone call that Candace Wells made to her stepsister-in-law. She called Mary incoherently sobbing and telling her that Don had just been hauled off by the cops to federal prison. Keep in mind, as you listen to this call, that Candace and Mary didn't have a close relationship, and also that by the time Candace made this call, Mary's sister Jeannie had publicly accused Don Wells of sexually abusing her for several years. This was a clear retaliation.
Hello? Hey, Mary. Hey. What's up? What's going on, Candace? They just took Donnie away. Who did? The police. They did? How come? I don't know. They wouldn't tell me the reason why. But they're flying him out to Boston, Massachusetts. They're flying him off to Boston? Yeah. Really? Oh my gosh, Candace. They didn't tell you why? No. So what they do? They just knocked on the door and came in and cuffed him and took him? Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Candace. Oh my gosh, Candace, I'm so sorry. But why would they take him all the way to Boston? This is the question, I don't know. Boston? I don't know. He don't have any ties in Boston that I know of. Oh, well, I know. I have nobody now over the Mexican mafia stuff. Oh, right. About $80,000. I don't know. He said, hey, $80,000 over the Mexican mafia. Wow. Yeah. They're gonna kill him. Huh? The Mexico, they're gonna kill him. They're gonna hurt him. The drug cartel, is that what you said? They're gonna kill him, they're gonna hurt him? Yeah. Well, if I'm always stand behind him. Do you think he had something to do with Summer's disappearance? In my heart, I don't. I've heard that Donnie said 20 children the mafia cartel. I don't know what to tell you. I'm really sorry. I feel really bad for you, Candace.
When Candace made that call to Mary, she knew that it would become YouTube content some way and somehow, and they probably calculated, Dawn and Candace, that Mary would immediately contact the interview room with which she had already established a relationship. And they probably also assumed that the interview room would immediately turn around and report it as fact and make them look like idiots. Well, the interview room did make content about it, but they made content that brought stepsister Mary on the air to call it out as a prank. By that time, people had already been mildly shocked by things that had been said and done by Dawn and Candace Wells.
When's her birthday?
What is Summer's birthday?
You don't know?
Yes, we don't know.
But this incident made people see the Wells in a whole new light. And it intensified the scrutiny that they would already have endured as the parents of a missing 5-year-old child. At this point, I should give you some background information on the Wells that might inform your perception too. On paper, Dawn and Candace both came from very rough, very challenging backgrounds with a great deal of trauma. For example, it didn't take long to discover that Summer Wells was not the first missing person in the Bly family. In fact, Candace has an older sister named Rose Bly who has been missing from Iowa since 2009. And like Summer, she's never been found and no one has been arrested or named a suspect. In addition, when Candace was a teenager, she married a man who was 40 years older than her and gave birth to 2 of his children. Both of those children were taken away from Candace when they were very young. At the time that Rose Bly, Candace's sister, went missing, Rose was caring for the children that Candace was too addicted to raise herself. Now, incidentally, one of those children grew up, became a teenager. Her name is Candace as well, and she also went missing for a short period of time when she ran away from foster care. So again, there's a history of missing persons in this family. Now, before meeting and marrying Dawn Wells, Candace engaged in behavior that earned her a criminal record of petty charges. Dawn and Candace have had 4 children together, and after Summer went missing, her 3 older brothers were permanently removed from their home by Child Protective Services. So what that means is that all of Candace's children that she gave birth to are either missing or were taken away from her. Now, Don describes his childhood as one that was dominated by an angry alcoholic father, and his parents divorced when he was young, and his father remarried the young of Jeannie and Mary, who have now accused Dawn Wells, along with Jeannie's daughter Trish, of essaying them as minors. Patterns of sexual deviation tend to permeate through DNA and environment, so most of us were not surprised to learn that Don claims to have been essayed himself as a child, and that his eldest son, Don Wells Jr., is a registered sex offender. Now, Don Wells has a tendency to get drunk, go on channels, and run his mouth, so the true crime audience has been inundated with his tales of woe since Summer went missing, including a drug addiction that could cause anyone, according to Don, to sell their soul.
When you get addicted to drugs, you will sell your own soul to stay high.
Now, Dawn Wells has a lengthy criminal history that's mostly related to drug addiction, but there's no evidence that Dawn Wells has done anything to change his addiction. In fact, he was arrested for driving under the influence after Summer went missing, and since he's still on probation for his other charges, that DUI earned him a year in jail. When Dawn Wells was incarcerated, Candace could be found on YouTube flirting with other YouTubers and sparking rumors of an affair. And aside from a few of Candace's appearances on YouTube during Dawn's incarceration, where Candace seemed oblivious to the fact that she had a missing child, things were relatively quiet on the Summer Wells front until Dawn was released last October. Since that time, the steam has been picking up again because Dawn Wells very much likes to participate in conversations on YouTube panels. So since that time, he's been bouncing around to multiple channels being the same guy that made us raise our eyebrows in the first place. Now, getting back to the prank they pulled, take everything I just told you about Dawn and Candace Wells and add to that the less than flattering images of their lifestyle that were projected to thousands on the interview room, plus the accusations of SA that were lobbied by his stepsisters, and now add to that the fact that the Wells were willing to take time out of their days to make up an entire lie about Dawn going to jail while they're supposed to be desperately looking for their daughter. It's nearly impossible to see the Wells as sympathetic figures after all of that. This prank signaled Dawn and Candace's enthusiastic participation, even if they didn't know they were signaling this, but it signaled their enthusiastic participation in turning Summer Wells from a little girl lost into a CashTag. And in my opinion, this is one of the primary reasons they will never be trusted and will always be looked at with suspicion in Summer's case. And you know, the interview room also took things too far, in my opinion, by making an entire sideshow out of Dawn Wells' accusers. If the interview room really wanted to help those ladies, I don't think it should have been made into content, or at least not the amount of content that it was made into. I think it should have gone to and stayed with the authorities for them to work out. Doing this took the focus far afield from the primary victim, Summer Wells, this missing girl. And by this time, she has now turned into a full CashTag, in large part because of this stunt. Now, you can't say the word CashTag without talking about the biggest CashTaggers of all, in the name of a defunct and briefly but badly organized group of misfits who called themselves Heels on the Ground. These people set themselves apart as an elite class of CashTaggers because they do it by raising money with the explicit purpose of protesting, which is actually stalking and harassing true crime families in front of their homes and workplaces. The most notorious CashTaggers in this bunch are Molly Golightly, Bullhorn Betty, and Jonathan Lee Riches. They had all individually made names for themselves by showing up in front of true crime families' houses to do what they call protest, but what most people would call outright harassment, as I said.
Get out of my fucking face! Come on, Candace, come out here and talk to us about your daughter. What'd you do with her? Hey. What did you do with your daughter? Fire him from the job. You don't need a baby. He buried his baby somewhere, and we want to know where she's at. Where's your baby?
As a result of what I just showed you, Dawn Wells lost his job before he went to jail. Now, regardless of what you think of Dawn Wells, and I just gave you a number of reasons that he's earned a bad reputation, no one deserves to get fired from their job because of a bunch of cash-tagging YouTubers charading as criminal justice warriors. And if you don't believe me when I say that these people were in it for the cash, believe it when you hear it out of their unofficial leader's mouth.
Classic Molly Golightly using Summer's name. The other one's like, she only talked about Summer for about 5 minutes. Guess what? It's all took. The name Summer Wells, in my opinion, is like playing with a broken slot machine. It's like being an old lady and sticking your little quarters and your $20 bills inside of a broken slot machine. Listen, the shit's gonna pay, okay? Like I said, Summer Wells is a cash cow.
Heels on the Ground deserves its own series of CashTag videos because almost as soon as they organically formed and announced a nonprofit in the same name, the group had imploded on itself because of internal infighting that was quickly made into what? Content, of course. I call phase 4 of every high-profile true crime case the fruit fly phase. Have you ever seen fruit flies? If you have, you know that the proportion of fruit flies you might get at any one time is directly proportional to the amount of rotten fruit left out in the open, just sitting there, rotting, fermenting. Now, by the time the fruit fly phase started rearing its head for the Summer Wells case, the CashTag phase had built up a year's worth of fermenting fruit, and the fruit flies swarmed in like fighter jets. Now, fruit fly, what do you mean by fruit fly in the sense of true crime? These are people who come out of the woodwork to feast on a case. They come in the form of singles or in clusters, in the form of nonprofits and nonsensical fundraisers. They come in the form of new witnesses in the case, be it a neighbor or a friend who stay with the family. We also hear from these fruit flies in a variety of forms. Most of the time, they start out talking on their Facebook page or social media site, then start appearing on various channels, then decide to lay a bunch of eggs in a new cluster of rotten fruit by starting their own channel. This has happened several times in the Summer Wells case. Here are just a few examples. And believe me, I know that there are many more where this comes from, but I'm just highlighting a few as examples. Jody Sue Brown is the neighbor who heard the scream. She emerged a few months into the case, and at one time she was a neighbor of the Wells, and since her place sat atop a hill adjacent to the Wells, she was positioned to hear things very clearly from the other side. She came out to say that she heard a scream from the Wells property at around 4:30 p.m. the day that Summer went missing. Don't quote me on that time. I don't know the exact time. We're not talking about facts of the case. We're talking about Jody Sue. So she first appeared in an interview on local news, but then started making appearances on various YouTube channels. And the channels who platformed Jody Sue also started seeing a lot of growth on their channels. And some of those were even local neighbors of Jody Sue in the Tennessee area. And in my belief, she probably saw that they were starting to grow on her name, so she started live streaming herself and made her own channel herself and now has her own channel. But because of her own behavior, her own confusing comments, her feuds with YouTubers, who some of which are her neighbors, some of which are the Wells, her behavior and her confusing comments have helped her to evolve from a sympathetic figure to a rather shady character over the course of this last 2 years. I haven't looked deeply into this, but I believe that Jody Sue's ex-husband or ex-partner, Andy, who she was with for a very long time and she talked about all the time on her channel, calling him Voldemort and saying that he was very abusive, he has a presence on YouTube. So again, they start coming out like fruit flies and they all need to respond to each other. They seem like they want to be doing the right thing, come in and they lobby all kinds of accusations and they don't show proof. And their information causes another wave of content that's tearing down all the information that that person brings. The most recent fruit fly to come around in the Summer Wells case has come in the form of a self-described cousin of Candace Wells, who swears on her life that Summer is the case of mistaken identity and that another child was targeted by a local drug militia and they came in and snatched her while trying to get that other child. She insists over and over that the Wells are innocent, but this totally ridiculous sounding story has been debunked by several other channels on the facts alone already. This woman also did not bring any proof, and the way she talked about it was very, very unconvincing. Listen to this.
The day Summer went missing, I'm telling you. Listen to me, I'm telling you the truth. This is just like crazy. Nobody's listening to us. He was busted. He was meeting people from Virginia, okay? A carload of 3 people hit him that morning. And
dude is Ricky.
Ricky's Marlena's brother.
Marlena is the one that's living in the homeless camp or whatever, right?
No, I don't know where the fuck the bitch is now. I'd like to know, but I don't know because she wouldn't be there. No, she's all, it comes down to the Crawfords. I'm telling you right now, listen to me.
The fruit fly stage is also marked by pseudo charity causes. There have been so many fraudulent fundraisers connected to Summer Wells that every legitimate, well-meaning cause is immediately put into question and doubt. One of those scams was a billboard scam concocted by a fruit fly from the local area. A guy named Chase proclaimed that he was going to buy time on a billboard or extend time on a billboard to keep her face out there, keep her Amber Alert out there, and he collected money from various parties on YouTube to purchase the billboard space for a number of months, but apparently has pocketed most of the money and scrammed. There were actually a number of YouTube grifts involving the reward fund that was set up for anyone who brought a credible tip leading to them finding Summer Wells. These grifts range from individual e-bounty hunters digging around online for information that could lead to a bounty, to online fundraising marathons that compelled the local nonprofit who administered the fund to file a lawsuit asking the judge to determine where the funds should go.
But in an attached document to the suit, O'Connor alleges it was improperly raised without prior consent of the rescue squad. In a statement to News Channel 11, Carlock says her contribution came from honest donations from verifiable people, and that it should still be given to the person leading to the recovery of Summer Wells. Schultz-Davis says listing Carlock, O'Connor, and all other parties in the request for declaratory judgment protects the rescue squad from further lawsuits.
They want to make sure that what they do has the stamp of approval of the court and that they've done the right thing with the money and not paid it out in a way that's not appropriate.
How sad, right? How incredibly sad that a local nonprofit wanted to do something for the right reason, and because of that, the core subject of the reward fund was drowned underneath all the controversy. It's also very sad that these grifters and cash taggers overshadowed the channels who truly care about finding Summer Wells, and there are many of them. With the coming 2-year anniversary of Summer's disappearance approaching, we are painfully morphing into the phase that I called blood cash. I call it blood cash when it's become patently obvious that there is no new information to learn about the case. So continuing to create new grifts and new bombshell content off of the case should be considered blood cash. I'm not talking about legitimate content that analyzes the case from a factual perspective. I'm speaking of channels that create content for the sake of creating content well after there's any new information to consume and claim to have new information but really don't. I'm talking about the obvious cash taggers. In the blood cash phase, cash taggers start to question everything that happened the last 2 years. They dredge up old wounds. They lash out at their perceived enemies.
Help you? Get a job then. Go get a job, Cam. Or the Xanax and the DUI is a problem.
Yeah, well, once you could do something about that, right?
And then you blamed on everyone else by losing your job, right? Just like all these other idiots. All these other people that blame it, right? Benny stabbing pit bulls on live TV for people, and then showing his sister's dead body and then just tragedy pin. Like, really? He told me he hated his sister. That she got SA'd by 5 African-American guys in a Motel 6. He said, I wish it was 6, and I wish they would have killed her that night.
And they pick apart all the things that went wrong on YouTube. And even in this phase, the primary reason for their existence, which is Summer Wells, is shoved to the back burner. And because the algorithm loves that controversy, our searches on the Summer Wells case are now overwhelmed with chaos and information. If we followed the case through every phase, from missing girl to full-on cash tag, it's a lot easier for us to separate the meat from the chaff. If we were attracted to a case that came after Summer Wells, such as Kylie or the Idaho 4, and out of our new interest in true crime do a search on the Summer Wells case, it's nearly impossible to tell where to start, what's accurate and what's not, and you must possess a very rational and logical mind to really figure it out. Let's bring this back around now to Summer Wells. Today she would be 7 years old, and even though Bullhorn Betty, the super cash tagger, would just as soon allow Summer be declared deceased,
I believe Summer Wells is dead. I don't believe that she walks this earth anymore. And so what is the first thing in order to hold somebody accountable? What is one of the first things that need to happen? Well, one of the first things that need to happen in this matter is she has not been designated as deceased. She is, in all intents and purposes, in the eyes of the law, she's still alive.
That would be very convenient for Bullhorn Betty and people like her, because now they'll have a whole new wave of content to talk about, right? But that is not the stance that we as a true crime community should adopt. Until we get more information from law enforcement, Summer Wells is missing, and we should not stop hoping to find her alive, even if her father isn't hopeful.
Losing hope. Well, yeah, I wonder if I'll ever see her again. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to lose hope, but yeah, I guess I am.
Until that hopeful date comes, the YouTube true crime community owes it to Summer Wells to make finding her the focus of their content and to stop clicking on content that is clearly another cash tag. If that hopeful time comes where Summer is found alive, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, think about how Summer will feel looking back on the mess that was her case on the internet, which is forever. So it'll still be there when and if, hopefully when, she is found. When and if she is found alive and makes her way onto the internet, will you be proud of what she sees? What was your contribution, either as a creator or as a viewer? Did you help or hinder the case? If you could do it again, what would you do differently? The phases I reviewed in this video are repeatable in various shapes, colors, and sizes in many other true crime cases. So please subscribe to this channel if you're interested in seeing my next video about a true crime victim who was made into a cash tag with a strong assist from the YouTube AI. Thanks for watching, and peace out.